Morning, we are here this morning with Ernest Lamprecht. He's the technical IT manager for a company called Mamba Cement. And we will be discussing the Emtelle and Ruckus rollout that we completed for Mamba Cement, pros and cons and the journey connected to that. So good morning and very welcome, Ernest. Thank you for joining us.
Morning, Dewald. Thank you for thanking me.
No
I
problem.
already feel very welcome. Thank you.
So let's dive right in. Can you provide us with a basic background? Just describe to us, what is Mamba Cement, what do they do, and how did we get to meet on this project?
Okay, well, Dewald. Mamba Cement, it's all in the name. We make cement.
And as I understand, very good cement.
Yes, the best cement in South Africa. Obviously the strongest, the best, the nicest, the cheapest. I hope this gets, some airtime. But yes. Dewald, our journey with Emtelle and you started a long time ago with CCTV cameras, and then your company developed, and then at Mamba Cement we started running into brick walls with our current partner at that time, and the issue is that they kept all the passwords and all the usernames for the switches and so on, and they just wouldn't give it to us. So we couldn't add to our network or change any configurations on them because of this fact, which then meant that we literally had to change the whole infrastructure of our network in 2 days.
And I think an interesting factor here for those obviously that would not know is the geographical location. Mamba Cement, the factory itself, is very remote. It's in the middle of
nowhere.
Basically farmlands.
Yeah, millies and bush.
Which makes it complicated from a support perspective, and I think it makes it complicated from a supplier perspective. You've only got so many people close by and or that's willing to do the distance.
Exactly.
So I think that was complicated. What caught my attention and interest was the fact that this is a really, really big setup.
It is. It's actually enterprise level. What makes it even more special is not just the fact that it's in the middle of nowhere. It's also that the product that we provide and manufacture, that very thin powder, gets in everywhere. So it's a very, very abrasive environment. So we really needed something that would stand the test. And as you know, I mean, it's a factory. There is so much, how can I put this, electronic noise, machine noise.
And lots of steel and
tons of steel, thick concrete bricks, thick walls.
Yeah, I think also what I found interesting is the buildings are all cast from concrete. So it's not a brick double wall type idea. It's a very thick concrete solid building. And the amount of steel that we are referring to here is absolutely insane. So we are definitely talking about reflection and diffusion. And we're ending up with a very high interference environment. Exactly.
So obviously we trialed and errored a few products before deciding on Ruckus. Luckily you guys were part of that journey, which made it much easier. I never knew about Ruckus until Emtelle introduced it to us. I wasn't a firm believer. I think you can remember it took some convincing, but I'm glad that I was wrong.
Right. Let's have a look at the actual site. Maybe speak to us a little bit about the size of the site and the size of the interconnection, the links, the switches, the physical geography of this place.
Okay, so once again, cement plant. Okay, quite a big staff complement, spread over a very wide area because of what we manufacture and so on. So you've got the admin offices, you've got laboratories, you've got water cleaning plants, you've got a electricity harvesting plant where we actually get 30% of the energy that we put into the company back through the system, which gives us an edge in the market.
Which was a fantastic edge to implement. Yeah.
So just to get something to cover, I mean, it's the size of, how can I put it, 10 loftuses. It's massive.
Yeah, it's a massive surface area.
Yes, so to just coverage in general without that interference was already going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
And of course, with us having to throw out all the old equipment and rebuild, I think you'll remember we built that network in 2 days in COVID.
Yeah, it was one of those interesting situations where one has not really got a window of change, because this plant needs to run, and it runs 24 hours a day.
Exactly.
What I also found interesting, of course, is the distribution, the way that we built the network. You guys ended up with a whole bunch of switches, again, due to the amount of buildings and the geography behind this. And we also applied some Wi-Fi for you in certain areas.
A lot of Wi-Fi.
One of the big questions I probably have got in my mind is, why did you choose Emtelle and Ruckus? What led you to understand that this is the way to do it, to go?
Okay. So when it comes to Emtelle and Ruckus, as I've already said, I wasn't sold on Ruckus. Never heard of the product. You guys were raving about it. We actually put it to test. As I said, I was glad to be wrong. So the equipment speaks for itself. I mean, but a box is not just a box. You know, all business is based on relationships. And we had a really good relationship with Emtelle, and that relationship was built on trust. And what's important to remember here is that Mamba is a 24/7 operation. So we needed a company that we could phone 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, because that's when our business runs. I saw there that they said how would Ruckus improve our productivity and, you know, in a monetary way, and that's actually asked wrongly in our case, is how much money do we lose when our network is down, or connectivity is down, or Wi-Fi is down, or a switch is faulty. So I actually got the figures for you today. So just in profit per day is 2 million, and total turnover, you're looking at 7 million rand. For us not being able to communicate.
Yeah, so what we're describing is, if you choose a product that not only does the job, but truly delivers, it has to deliver consistently, and it has to keep on delivering consistently, because when things go down, there's a really dramatic effect.
Of course. So and that's another important fact that I have to state, is once again, a box is a box. If I buy Ruckus from Peter or I buy it from Paul, it doesn't matter. It's going to be the same piece of equipment. The problem is, if something goes wrong, and it will, who do you phone? How quickly do they respond? Are they competent enough to respond? That's what you need, and that's what we found in Emtelle, that we could phone them at any time. I mean,
no, thank you for that. Thank you for that. Would you also agree that we faced a fair challenge due to the fact that this was an existing factory? And I think, to put this into context, there was a lot of fiber connectivity between buildings and so forth, which is under the ground, which is already in place, which means we had to plan and deploy the network according to certain fixed parameters. It's not as if we could do whatever we wanted.
It's always harder to fix someone else's mess than it is to just do a brand new installation that's been properly planned. So, as I previously mentioned, we couldn't get into any of our devices. So we were at the mercy of the infrastructure that we could change. And that's what we kept, which was basically just the fiber lines between the buildings, and then obviously the provider of the internet, our connectivity, is all that we could basically keep. The rest of it all had to go. And the thing is, we had to have complete control of that network within a matter of 2 days. I mean, that was our downtime. Luckily and unluckily, we had to do it in COVID. Luckily, business wasn't booming because, you know, people were staying at home and so on. Unluckily, because resources were at the minimum, it was difficult to travel.
And I remember us working through the night.
Yes, yes.
Very, very clearly.
Yes, I can remember you guys working through the night. I was working till late and then buying, but yes, I remember. So, yes, I mean, in things like that, and I'm a company that's prepared to do that. And I mean, I can still remember loading your whole team into my car and a ton of switches. Okay, we had a few cars because we were a lot of people. And everybody just jumped in, from the directors to the, the junior staff to the, even the managing director. Everybody getting their hands dirty, plugging in switches, programming port by port by port. And I'm not sure about the numbers, but I mean, how many switches do we have?
There were a number. There's 40, 50 switches there.
At least.
So yeah, I think a big focus for us is, of course, on the pre-planning. Knowing what we want to achieve, rather spending a lot of time on planning and setting up and doing as much as possible before the time, than to try and end up on a site figuring things out.
No, you're absolutely right. And I mean, that was done properly. I mean, I can at least remember 4 meetings that I attended with the equipment standing everywhere in someone's living room, being pre-programmed and being pre-tested and so on, or, preparing as well as we could, so we could spend the minimum time getting the plant back up and running.
What unexpected obstacles and challenges did you feel through that process as the client?
Okay, so during the installation, I saw us hitting a couple of walls, like the way bridges going down, because it wasn't communicating properly with the switch and so on. And then luckily George fixed it. Who knew?
Yeah, I vaguely remember also that we ended up with the control system for the way bridges, which was incredibly old.
Yes.
And software that dated back from Noah's Ark.
Yes.
And we had quite a bit of the switching gear equipment that was also battling to communicate. But it's all about outdated drivers, etc. But the fact is that needs to be part of the network, and eventually we got that all under control.
Yes, we did. As I said, you're always going to hit a wall. You're always going to have a problem. Something will break. Something will go wrong. And if you've got competent people in place, then your mind's at rest. I'm responsible for quite a lot. There's a lot on my shoulders. So I need the people that I work with to be competent and understand my position. And if there's a problem, take my hand, help me sort it out, and we can find out who's to blame later.
Yeah, and that's exactly, I think, where the partnership comes from, right?
Yes.
And I think from our view, of course, we rely on solid products that we know we can install and walk away. How would you think, after the installation, has this affected productivity at the site?
Okay, so once again, as I mentioned earlier, let me just make this point a little bit clearer. You can't really say that it affects productivity, because if it works, it works. We make cement, trucks go in, trucks go out. But if it's down, we lose millions. So it needs to be quality equipment, it needs to be looked after, it needs to be well maintained, and if something goes wrong, it has to be fixed very, very quickly.
So the biggest positive would be the fact that our downtime has been limited.
Yes,
tremendously.
So it's the money we save by being up. It's not really letting us make more money, it's just not letting us lose
Exactly,
money.
and one can't afford something to continuously break down or be complicated. All right, that's good advice. Tell me, what advice or recommendations would you give to other organizations when they're facing complex networks, complex connectivity problems? From your experience, what advice could you give somebody going forward?
Okay. Get a company with similar clients than what you are. Get references, see how they're sorting it out, and look at more than 10. And then, find the right partner. So,
because I also know from your past background, you're a IT manager that invests heavily in research and understanding what's out there,
yes.
and comparing equipment and
yes.
solutions and pricing.
Yes, and I know that irritates you.
Very much so.
Yes, and I'm glad they're not success. So now I have to. I mean, if you're responsible for something, you're responsible for something. So if you're going to be called on it, you better have your answers ready, and your proof ready. And we're talking about millions of rands here. It's not, like thousands of rands. So I have to be responsible with our company's money, number one, with their time, and then obviously give them a good quality solution. Otherwise, my name,
So from a view that you are a person that have seen a lot of different other products and
yes.
other companies, how would you rate us?
It depends on the day, Dewald. Okay, but no, honestly, what's nice about your company is that we don't always see eye to eye. Your timing isn't always the timing I want, and I'm not talking about long times. I mean, I want answers right now. Sometimes I have to wait 5 minutes, and it irritates me. But when I get to speak to the correct person after 5 or 10 minutes, the problem does get solved, or we get pointed into the right direction. I mean, we've had a couple of breakdowns in connectivity where the problem wasn't Intel's, but because of the competence of the staff that you employ, we could pinpoint it immediately and sort it out. And I mean, at the end of the day, as I said, let's sort out the problem first and then blame each other later.
And I think you're speaking to a valid point where we have got a similar scenario with a number of clients whereby the company running the network or that is responsible for the management of the network is not necessarily the same company doing the internet connectivity or the firewall or ancillary devices.
Exactly.
And we have found, of course, the more visibility you've got on the overall setup from A to Z, the simpler and easier it becomes, but it's not always possible.
No, it's not. No, it's not. And that's why it's important to speak to competent people and speak to them quickly, because they'll immediately tell you, listen, it's not on our side, and then normally 2 or 3 phone calls later you've solved the problem or found the guilty party or found the problem in the network, if it's connectivity, if it's on the firewall like you've mentioned, or if it's on the internal network, which has been the case many times where we at fault. But you're the professionals, you're supposed to tell us what's wrong, and we're obviously supposed to tell you if something's going wrong. And
you have also got an interesting setup which entails that you've got an off-site head office in Johannesburg. And of course one can understand that there's also communication that's crucial between these two sites.
Yes. So what's important here is obviously the ton of new laws being passed, like the Poppy Act and everything, is how to protect our data, especially when we're running 2 sites. Keeping the communication secure between the 2 sites, because it's actually the finance office that's in Johannesburg, and then obviously the operational plant, which is in the middle of nowhere, just 30 k's into the bush from Northern. So security is a big core function as well that we solved very well, up to port level. I mean, you cannot plug anything into any port if it's not what it should be in the first place. And if it's
not securing those ports also to prohibit something else being plugged
or
in.
anybody else plugging their computer thinking they can do things. And especially what I really like now is this new cloud controller that you installed for us, so that we can use our Active Directory through our access points now to restrict internet access, which we couldn't do before. We had to block it for everybody. Now, some of the management do need to YouTube or do this or do that for research or for this and for that. But unfortunately, you can't allow it for everybody. You lose a lot.
And to obviously understand what users are doing.
Exactly.
What are they doing? When are they doing it? How are they doing it?
Yes.
So it's all about having the information. I think a big topic, and probably something that we've seen right over the world, is from the time that there's COVID, or COVID started, the IT teams became smaller and smaller. And the responsibility on the people left over gets just bigger and bigger.
Yes.
Which I think forces the IT manager and his staff to become multi-skilled and to be in a place where every single person has only got so many hours available.
Yes.
And one is looking for products and services and possibly outsourcing that can take this strain away. How do you feel that has impacted you and your team during the COVID period, and what was sort of the result at the end of COVID?
The problem now is that you couldn't have all the staff at work. The ones that could work remotely should have worked remotely. So we had to figure out quick and secure ways for people to access the network remotely. And I mean, it's already a remote location.
And I think that caught us all off guard, because it was, let's get this in place really quickly.
I mean, we used everything from, how can I put this? Wireless links to satellite link ups to whatever we would work just to keep the people working. I mean, and the worst thing about it was not just getting the connectivity going, it was getting it secure so that people weren't causing issues from working from home, and creating space for cyber attacks on our network.
Has COVID or that period affected your team in any way? Smaller, bigger, much the same?
Not on our IT team. I mean, it stayed exactly the same, but the workload got a lot more. Because remember, at the head office you've got one line coming in for internet and everybody sits there. Now you've got 25 people at home. Now you've got 25 lines that you're looking after and doing house calls, because luckily you got a permit. I mean, it was hectic. I mean, I've never been that busy in my whole life. Everybody else was relaxing and staying at home, but I wasn't.
Because I also know that a lot of the services has been or is being migrated to the cloud. I think it's changing a lot of our ways of thinking in terms of IT.
Okay, so once again, you must take into account the remote location of our factory. So we've got a hybrid model where SAP is on site, and that needs to be on at all times. Even if the connectivity goes down, we still need to get our cement in and out, and that's it.
And you've many trucks a day that would be doing this.
Hundreds of trucks.
It's a massive setup.
As I've said, millions of rands lost if that thing is not working correctly. So we had to move one of the main servers on site, but once again, the new challenge is that we had to get the server room up to standard before you can do that. Luckily, we had help from you guys again to get it up to standard. So that worked out well for us, but yeah. But as I said, remotely, we had a lot of work to do. A lot of work.
Yeah, it was a challenging time, I think, for all of us. Can you elaborate on any innovative or customized solutions that Emtelle implemented? I'm specifically referring to the challenges that we faced with the cutover. I think we had a fair amount of challenges that we had to overcome in a very, very short amount of time.
Yes. So number one, we had to find out what the routes were. We were not always sure, not all the routes were properly marked. So it took a lot of time in testing, trial and error to get it up and running. Time was definitely against us. Once again, as I said, you guys were absolutely great when we did that cutover. What more can I say?
Well, considering what I would call great success of this project, do you see any future development? Do you see any expansion of your project?
Like I said, luckily this is common knowledge now, but we're duplicating the plant. Right next
So
door.
now it's becoming massive.
Yes, so you'll be duplicating that network for us, hopefully within the next 18 months.
And do you feel confident that Ruckus is capable of doing that?
Definitely. I wouldn't install any other product.
Right, that's good news. That's great news. Yeah. Great feedback for us. And I think to close off, Ernest, thank you for your feedback. But in your opinion, what distinguishes Emtelle's approach to customer service and probably problem solving to other vendors you've worked with in the past? What makes Emtelle Ruckus unique for you?
Okay, so Emtelle and Ruckus, let's do them separately. So Emtelle, everybody's friendly. There's always somebody to talk to. That's all you want. You just want to get through. You want to know that your problem's been heard and they're sorting it out internally. It doesn't take long. Doesn't even matter if it's the sales lady like Nikita picking up the phone. She'll make sure, especially her, she'll make sure that she gets you to the right person quickly. But you can speak to anybody on your technical team, Quibus, George, and that's what's nice. They're very approachable, they're very open. You don't always have to log a call just to get some information to pull you through. So it's not always just about the money. If it's a quick fix, then there's no invoice, and that I like. We're in a partnership, and
it's important to foster those long-term relationships, right?
Of course. I mean, it's a give and take thing. You expect me to buy from you the next time that we do an expansion. I expect you to give good service, a good price, and lead me in the right direction, and tell me when there's a new product out. Lots of people don't do that after the first installation. They'll just
that's great.
Carry on. So
yeah, again, thank you for the feedback. That's great.
No, for sure.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate all the comments, and yes, we have walked quite a journey already. I think we've gone through a number of ups and downs and challenges that we all faced, and to me it's very heartwarming to actually know that there's somebody that can testify to that. As I always say, in the beginning, I suppose any company and any vendor would tell any client all the nice things and all the promises, and it's excellent to walk the road, then look back and then say, this is true, this is actually what happened, it wasn't just promises.
No, for sure.
So thank you very much for that. I appreciate your time.
No, the pleasure's all mine, and if you need any clients that need convincing, put them in the car and bring them over to the plant, and they can actually see the abrasive environment in which we work daily and how good it really works. We'll
take a day trip there to the 42 degrees Celsius environment.
We can go in the winter when it's only 35.
Exactly. Ernest, thank you very much.
Pleasure's all mine.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks for the invitation, Dewald.
Dankie.